Now find island-inspired, limited-time flavors at Whole Foods Market for the Explore the Tropics sales event. Enjoy pre-marinated mains like mango coconut salmon and pineapple teriyaki chicken, and pair them with seasoned, ready-to-heat beans from a dozen cousins. Need dinner and a snap? Grab zesty lime shrimp salad, mango turkey burgers, and more from Prepared Foods. And, of course, there's the mango yuzu chantilly cake. Explore the tropics and save at Whole Foods Market in-store and online.
It's time to play ball. My son has been working with his baseball team since the fall, and we are officially in baseball season. So if you're a mama like me and you got to stock up on all the sporting gear, now is the time. Academy Sports and Outdoors has the gear that you need, and you can bring it home for less. Gear up for baseball, softball, and t-ball with essentials from Easton, Rawlings, and Wilson at Academy. Academy offers free 1-hour in-store or curbside pickup if you're like me and you forgot to get the equipment in time. Swing by your local store or shopacademy.com today and get ready to hit it out of the park.
We're taught to buy more, invest more, add another accolade, procure a new degree, network for one more contact, add another friend, enhance the wardrobe, the house, the job. But what if? What if the way we're actually meant to become our best selves is by a careful gleaning? What if we become not through addition, but through subtraction?
Hi, I'm Rachel, and in this show, we talk about everything. Life and work, health and healing, relationships with others and with ourselves. These are stories for the seekers. These are conversations for the curious. This is the Rachel Hollis Podcast. Hey guys, it's Rach. Welcome to another episode of the show and a very woo-woo conversation, which at this point I think you guys are all on board with, because every time I do an episode that has any spiritual undertones, I feel like you guys flock to it. Maybe you're just as curious as I am. But today we're going to talk about letting go through the lens of spirituality, and very specifically the practice that I have incorporated into my life and into my children's lives to remind us the importance of letting go. We're going to start with a chapter from the audiobook of my new book based on this question. So I'm going to ask it, and I just want you to really allow yourself to think of an answer, like what pops into your heart, what pops into your spirit when I ask you, what must you let go of to become the best version of yourself? Not what should you let go of, what would be great to stop doing, but what must you let go of? What must you put down? What must you stop doing in order to become the dream version of you? So I found that question so powerful in my life that I created a ritual to remember to ask it of myself once a month. And in this chapter of the audiobook, I share all about that experience, and I thought it would be a great build up into this conversation. And then take a deeper dive into a podcast episode where I went all in to the full moon, what it represents, how it shows up. I will say this both in the chapter and the podcast as well. I picked the day of the full moon because it is a day of the month that happens without fail. Every single month there will be a full moon. Every single month there will be a new moon. You could pick any day of the month. You could pick the 7th of every month because it's your favorite number. It really doesn't matter what you choose. The conversation is more about the ritual itself. How much would it impact our lives if we created a regular moment for reflection? I think most of us are rushing from one piece to another. We're constantly achieving, we're constantly checking things off the list, we're taking care of other people, we're trying to take care of ourselves. Very rarely do we slow down long enough to ask, what's working? What doesn't serve me anymore? What am I doing more out of habit and routine than out of a real desire to do this task? That is the intention behind today's episode. If you dig it, consider grabbing the audiobook on Audible. I narrate all of my books, so you can go use your token this month to grab the full book and take a deeper dive. But at the very least, let's have a very woo-woo conversation about the moon and questions we should be asking as often as we can.
What must you let go of? At the beginning of each year, my friends and I used to host what we called a vision cast. We'd gather at some aesthetically pleasing local coffee house, commandeer a large table, then spend half a day planning for the year ahead. We called it Vision Cast because we were laying out the high-level vision for our lives, and also because it sounded cool. Sure, we could have planned our year out by ourselves, but having other people involved in our New Year's resolutions elevated our individual visions. It's way harder to sell yourself short when your hype squad believes you're worth $1 million. But more than that, all those other people hearing about your goals generates collective accountability. After all, if Mary Sue told you on January 10th that she really dislikes her job and she's committed to finding a better place to work, it gives you full permission to challenge her on why she's still trapped there when she complains about it in June. Not everyone is a safe space for your life's vision. Hopes and dreams are delicate little robin's eggs and very easily shattered. But if you have people you can trust, I don't know any better way to kick off a new year, especially if you enjoy deep conversation and espresso-based beverages. Having the group's accountability throughout the years was awesome, but having their insight during the actual vision cast, vital. Everyone came to the table with an idea or a process that had helped them the previous year. Over the years, we tested out each person's ideas and frameworks and eventually distilled them down into a tried and true agenda we used again and again. The highlight of which were definitely the questions we each had to answer about the previous year in order to help us better prepare for the next one. The best of these? What must you let go of in order to be the person you want to be? That right there is a hell of a question. Can we just sit with it for a minute? If you know the answer to that question, it can change your whole life. That's some get brutally freaking honest with ourselves about why we keep holding on to the same people, practices, and habits that are destroying our potential. That's a badass question right there. But this badass question started as an anemic, awkward version of the move maker she would become. Back in the beginning, at the early Vision Cast get-togethers, the question we actually asked was, what do you need to let go of? Okay, sure, it's fine. It doesn't blow my hair back, but it's a good start for contemplation, particularly if you've never considered the idea before. But what we didn't understand when we first dreamed it up is that this question doesn't require any real commitment. If you're really, truly trying to change your life for the better, you must be willing to commit, or you'll be saying the exact same stuff at VisionCast again next year. If you ask yourself, what do I need to let go of? You can come up with all kinds of suitable answers. I need to let go of my dependence on alcohol as a coping mechanism. I need to let go of unfulfilling sex as a substitute for intimacy. I need to let go of this debilitating obsession with my parents' approval. I need to let go of those clothes and a fixation on a body I don't have anymore. I need to stop this never-ending toxic relationship with my ex-girlfriend. I need to let go of worry about what other people will think if I come out. All of us can come up with things in our life that we know shouldn't be there. But the power of the badass question is that it doesn't ask you what you need to let go of. It asks you what you must let go of. And then it doubles down. In order to be the best version of yourself. Must isn't a possibility, it's a necessity. The best version of ourselves leaves little room for negotiation or excuses. By changing the words we use to ask ourselves questions, the questions become more compelling. The more compelling, the more likely they are to give us answers that will provoke, at the very least, a different perspective and, at most, lasting change. This can be powerful work at an annual get-together, a journaling session on your birthday, or a discussion topic at the top of a new year. But imagine, just imagine how much your life might change for the better if you were to ask yourself this question every single month. And this, friends, is how our annual Vision Cast morphed into the monthly full moon dinner. We realized a year was too long to go in between check-ins. We wanted something more consistent, a regular way to touch base, see where we were, and how closely our paths resembled the ones we said we wanted to be walking. A monthly check-in seemed much more effective. It was a great way to acknowledge the passing of each month, and frankly, I love any reason to celebrate, especially if it feels sort of witchy. Why do it on a full moon? Better question, why not? A little research revealed that the full moon represents the completion of a cycle. And not sure if this is true for my fellow bleeders, but the full moon is also when my period comes traipsing into town every month. TMI? Okay, back to this thematic dinner. The full moon represents the completion of the lunar cycle, making that day a beautiful opportunity to review the previous month and practice gratitude for all that's happened. And since my hormones are also at their peak, I started planning delicious dinners, usually heavy and laden with carbs, to go along with it. Fried chicken with 7-Up biscuits and mac and cheese, cavatelli swimming in a ragu that takes all day to simmer down to just the right consistency, crusty bread seared in a cast iron skillet then rubbed with so much fresh garlic it'll make your toes curl. Full moon dinner became a monthly feast and the opportunity for equally delicious conversation. My kids, a motley crew ranging from age 7 to 17, are usually accompanied by friends, also of various ages. These teens and preteens tend to be spiritually inclined, or maybe they just like my spaghetti and are willing to feign an interest in deep conversation in order to get it. If friends are available or colleagues from work are around, they're invited. If my boyfriend is in town, he's in, along with his world-famous homemade lasagna. My niece is there whenever she can swing it. Sometimes we bring in a sun-worn table from outside because there are too many people to fit comfortably at the dining table. It's made for 6, but can technically accommodate 10 if you squeeze 4 people in at the corners and force them to sit in folding chairs from the laundry room. The outside table can get us up to 15, and we'll do it because a full moon requires, at least in my opinion, everyone with a seat at the same table. That way, when we get to the question portion of the evening, everyone is included. The full moon dinner is always followed by the badass question. What must you let go of in order to be the person you want to be? Several months back, I was chatting with author Ben Hardy about his book, Be Your Future Self Now. We got into a long and fairly nerdy discussion about Michelangelo, the artist, not the Ninja Turtle. Michelangelo's life is a fascinating study in the kind of mindset personal development geeks obsess over today. He embodied things like flow state, deliberate practice, and the endless opportunities found inside your proximity to power. I mean, the Medici? As patrons? When you were still only a teenager? Okay, bitch, go off! And he did all of that hundreds of years before anyone would classify what he was doing or have the language to explain why it worked. Of all the things he accomplished, painting, poetry, the Sistine Chapel, the most incredible, in my humble opinion, is his statue of David. If you ever get the chance to see it in person, you'll be astounded at how massive it is. Unlike the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which will really bum you out by being shockingly smaller than you've been led to believe, the David will delight you by being bigger than the giant Philistine he was meant to be fighting. The attention to detail in the work, the way the ancient Carrara marble almost looks like silk or wax because it seems so fluid no matter which angle you look at it from. It's an utter delight to behold, especially if you happen to be an uncultured American girl on her first trip to Europe. It wasn't until nearly 2 decades after visiting Florence that I sat with Ben Hardy and he told me the coolest thing about how Michelangelo constructed this masterpiece. Apparently, Michelangelo said the piece was created not by carving David out of stone, but by removing everything that wasn't David. Y'all, can we all just take a minute? This iconic work was created not by adding anything, but by chiseling away at whatever shouldn't be there. This is the opposite of everything we're taught. We're taught to buy more, invest more, add another accolade, procure a new degree, network for one more contact, add another friend, enhance the wardrobe, the house, the job. But what if? What if the way we're actually meant to become our best selves is by a careful gleaning? What if we become not through addition, but through subtraction? Through a stripping away of ideas and beliefs and ways of being that we should have never carried in the first place. My favorite yoga teacher is a wise older man who, deeply on brand, wears tie-dye almost exclusively and travels everywhere with his own harmonium. I happened to take his class on a full moon once, and he mentioned that that particular full moon happened to fall under Scorpio. I don't know much about astrology, so I can't even tell you what month it was, but I look for signs and lessons in everything. So after class, I Googled scorpions. I never said I was cool, you guys. In my little research project, I was struck by several things. The first is that in order for a scorpion to grow bigger, it must completely shed its skin first. Its exoskeleton must be hard in order to keep it safe. Awesome if you're battling a tarantula, but terrible if you'd like to expand in size or strength. If it wants to grow any bigger than it currently is, it must first remove its entire outer layer. Based on an image search, I can tell you that nothing about this process seems easy. In fact, when the scorpion sheds her armor, the shell she leaves behind looks very much like a lifeless version of herself. I couldn't help but wonder how tight and claustrophobic it must have been constantly pushing against walls that were unable to expand with her. How long did she try to fit inside that smaller version of herself simply because it was easier? How scary it must have been to decide to evolve knowing the transition would be deeply painful. Why am I crying? And when did I start seeing my story play out in the life cycle of scorpions? Just wait, it gets even more poignant, guys. The other beautiful lesson I learned is that when the scorpion finally makes the decision to leave her armor behind, she must live, sometimes for several days, completely vulnerable without any protective coverings. My guess is that some of you are in a season like that, a time when you feel raw and exposed and without your armor. It's so easy in those moments to want to cling to what you know, to crawl back into a skin that no longer fits because at least it comes with certainty. I know this feeling well. Having gone through harsh, self-appointed transitions many times in my life, I can tell you this. The pain of suffocating in a life too small to accommodate our wholeness is far worse than the discomfort of metamorphosis. You, my sweet friend, you were not made to be limited by fear. You were made to carve out your own beautiful version of magnificence. Your next evolution will never be found inside a shell that can't support the incredible thing you're becoming. And so, whether this conversation finds you at a new year, or on a full moon, or any old ordinary day, it's worth your time to ask yourself this question. What do you need to lay down and leave behind? What must you let go of in order to become a better version of you? What parts and pieces need to be chipped away in order to reveal the masterpiece that is, and always has been, the real and authentic you?
I think you guys know this, but in case you don't, my happy place is on the beach. Actually, that's not enough. My happy place is on the beach with an iced coffee in my hand. What a vibe. There are a lot of beaches out there, but there's only one people call the beach. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, is made up of 14 coastal communities and 60 miles of sunny beaches. Together, they create a place that makes you feel like you belong. Shine and dine in a foodie haven with oceanfront patios, fresh seafood, low country classics, and southern favorites. Plus, my favorite, you can listen to live music any day of the year, outside at laid-back beach bars, at world-renowned theaters, or right on the boardwalk. You belong at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Plan your trip to the beach at visitmyrtlebeach.com. Look, everyone knows that toilet paper is not created equal. Not all rolls are the same. Some are too soft. Some, can we say, sort of crumble, if you know what I'm saying. Then other toilet paper is so strong that it can actually hurt. And let's not even talk about the toilet paper that is so thin, it doesn't get the job done. Angel Soft is soft and strong and always affordable. Come on, life is too short. There's too much going on. I don't want to have to overthink this. So pick up a pack of Angel Soft in the toilet paper aisle of your nearest retailer. That's Angel Soft, soft and strong. Simple. So today I want to talk to you about a full moon. Specifically, what are some of the practices that I have around the cycle of the moon and what a full moon represents for me and why I got into this practice. That's what it's about. I've talked about this a lot. I have a group of people. Let me back up. If we are real life friends, you are going to get text messages from me pumping you up, a song I think you'd like, a quote that I heard, and definitely if there's something that I'm working through in my life or if I've read a really great book or whatever, everybody in my circle is going to get a text about it. And I've been doing this thing with the lunar cycle, which is the cycle of the moon, for about a year. And recently I felt like I should share what I was doing on a full moon. And I sent it out in text and I sent it to a bunch of different people. And the response I got was really wild. Like I was really blown away that many people cared, or maybe that many people were craving ritual in their life. And so I thought, maybe that's a podcast idea. And I'm making it right now because our next full moon is coming this week. If you're listening to this in real time, the next full moon is happening this week. If you're listening to this at a different time, that's okay. The next full moon will be happening for you at some point in the next month, so you can find an opportunity. I'm hoping that some of the ideas that I share with you will give you a great practice for what it means when the full moon rolls around. I did not grow up with any knowledge of the earth, astrology, lunar cycles, solar cycles, the effect that those have on our body, magic, like herbal medicine, any of that. I was raised in a really strict Christian home. And if you know the Christian faith or different denominations of that faith, I was raised Pentecostal. So it's a really hardcore, very conservative version of Christianity. And there were beautiful things about that, and there were really crappy things about that. And one of the things that definitely showed up in the way I was raised was kind of this idea that anything that wasn't inside of our faith was evil, which is so messed up. Like, so messed up that you would, as human beings, believe that if someone doesn't believe the way you believe, or if someone practices a different religion, or if someone just has different information, that you would believe that they're evil because they don't have your same faith. But it definitely was the way that I was raised. And because I was raised that way, really grounded in fear, because that's fear-based thinking, that's fear of the unknown, I definitely didn't know anything about anything that wasn't the Christian faith when it came to spirituality. And over the last maybe 5 years, I think I really started to explore more. I started to read books about other religions, and I wanted to understand what other people were thinking or doing or questioning. And along that path, it was sort of like a domino effect for me. I really just felt this calling, and I think a lot of women are feeling this calling right now to spirituality with nature, with understanding the power of herbal medicine, with navigating things not through pills or medication, but how can we take care of ourselves through what Mother Nature gave us. And somewhere along that path, one of my best friends, Sammy, said, hey, you guys, I'm going to mark in the calendar when there's a full moon. I think it would just be cool to mark the full moon. And she literally marked out the full moon for a full year, and she sent it as a calendar invite to all of us. So it was me, Sammy, Beans, and Rosie. I think you know me well enough. Those are my best friends. So she sent it to us, and at the time, none of us really knew a lot about it. But we liked the idea that at least once a month we would slow down and sort of unpack where we were. And that is really what started this process for me. Honestly, there was no spirituality attached to it for us in the beginning. It truly was, what if just once a month we, did some journaling, we were more grounded, we were very intentional about what it was. And also, we liked the idea, we started throwing full moon dinners. So on the full moon, we'd get together, we'd have a yummy dinner. It was just a reason to be intentional once a month. The first few months, it was just fun. We looked up a little bit of information, but mostly we just used it as a chance to get together, have a great meal, have some great natural wine, and, hang out with each other. And then, each in our own way, we started researching more. How had women specifically from the dawn of time and through different cultures used the moon as a guidepost, used a full moon as powerful energy for doing different things? How had this been used? And I think there's something so freaking powerful about exploring how other people have done things, how other faiths have done things, how it has shown up in the world. Maybe 99% of that you're not going to do anything with. But when you explore, I think there's always just this little idea, you get a little seed. It's why the theme this month in our challenge, our last 90 days challenge, is curiosity. So much of what I learned about the moon cycle was in relation to being curious about how other people had used it. I started to get more intentional about learning what other people had done, and it's when I really became aware of how our bodies as women are connected to a lunar cycle. This is science. Go look it up. Obviously the pull of the moon affects tides, it affects water here on Earth, and it definitely affects women and their hormones and their cycle. And for me, there's something really interesting about a full moon because, sorry if this is more information than you wanted today, but I am cycled to the full moon. So I usually get my period on or right around the full moon. And that happens, at least for me, because I'm not on any sort of birth control or anything that would affect when it occurs. But I definitely am cycled in that way. So I was like, this is crazy. How have I never noticed? Because I didn't know anything about the full moon. So how have I never noticed before that this is when my period comes? Like, that's crazy. And that can't be an accident. And what does this mean? So I started to get more intentional about it. It's how I discovered, if you listen to last week's episode where I interviewed Kristen and we talked about women's cycles and all of that really groovy information, me discovering her came from part of this journey. And what ended up coming out of this practice of once a month, I'm going to pay attention to what this day is, and I notice that my body's changing in relation to what's going on with the moon, really meant taking a deep dive into what different cultures have done with the moon as it pertains to spirituality. So that then gave me a practice of what I could do myself on this day. And that's the point of this entire podcast. Now that I've told you how I got here, the point of this podcast is to encourage you to also use the full moon as a marker in your calendar every month. You do not have to associate this with spirituality. This can just be a great freaking practice for you. So some of the things that I learned: number one, every single moon has a different name or a different theme. And most of those go back to sort of like ancient times or indigenous people or First Nations and what the moon represented to them during that specific time of year. So you have the worm moon, which was the first time that worms started to appear in the springtime, and so that they called it the worm moon. Or we've just celebrated the harvest moon, which is when crops would be available for harvest. So there's all sorts of themes, for lack of a better word, and those can be really powerful as just a prompt to kind of pull that in. And I definitely do, because you know me, I love to find intention in basically everything. But what I love about the full moon, and what I think people have responded to so much in these texts I've been sending out, is the full moon represents letting go. If you think of this in relation to a woman's cycle, starting your period is letting go, right? It's getting rid of something that is unnecessary, that you don't need, your body doesn't need. It's sort of a clearing out. So the full moon is an incredible opportunity to be intentional and ask yourself, what do I need to let go of? And that's what I'm hoping you guys will use the full moon for. The full moon is a great opportunity to ask yourself what you need to let go of. Now, be very careful, because when we started this practice, we would sit around our full moon dinner and we'd say, what am I going to let go of this month? Like, what am I going to let go of and not bring with me into next month? And I realized after a minute that wasn't a great prompt, because there's a big difference in what will I let go of and what do I need to let go of. Two totally different things. So if you ask yourself, what do I need to let go of? That means maybe some hard answers, right? That means What are the people in my life that I know should not be here? What are the habits that I have that are not serving me? What are the choices that I continue to make that keep me from being the highest level of myself? What do I need to let go of this month? I will approach that process through journaling. I'll ask myself, full moon journaling session, like, okay, what do I need to let go of? And I really do look at all the areas of my life. So I'll say like personally, professionally, financially, emotionally, like what are those things that I need to release? And look, that is an important question to ask yourself no matter what day of the month it is. But there's something about knowing that every single month you need to let go of something that I think really prompts us to be action-oriented when it comes to change. Years ago, I was watching the Oprah show, and she said, you can't receive anything if your hands are full, which I love on so many levels. But definitely when it comes to what do I need to release, a new moon, just to give you a little sneak peek, a new moon is all about creation. A new moon is the start of something new, but a full moon is closure. It's the end. It's what does it look like to release this? I'll also tell you, and I really want to encourage you to do your own research when it comes to this topic, but that a full moon is about being grounded. It's about practices that make you feel sort of closer to the earth. So for me, that's a full moon dinner, and that dinner tends to be like heavy and rich and really yummy versus a new moon, which is light and fresh, and it's sort of a different vibe. And honestly, maybe you roll your eyes at this and say, like, this is so stupid. Why would you even care to do this? Because I don't think it's hurtful. Whatever you believe, whatever faith you have, I don't think there's anything hurtful about being intentional once a month and just asking yourself some better questions. What are those things that you keep doing that you know you shouldn't? What are those things that are fear-based for you that if you didn't have this anchor in your life, everything would be better? And look, it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be painful to let go of that thing, or that it wouldn't hurt, or that it wouldn't maybe take some time to come to terms with what this looks like in the new version of your life. But there is power in release. There's power in saying no more. I think that most of the time women we don't struggle with like saying yes, we struggle with saying no. We're so afraid, like, what happens if I let go of this thing? Well, if you let go of this thing, suddenly you have capacity that you didn't have before.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists create connectivity solutions that change the way we work, live, and play. Like Kunle, a Comcast engineer who is focused on revolutionizing the in-home Wi-Fi experience today and for the next generation. Learn more at ComcastCorporation.com/Wi-Fi.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Look, going to therapy, it's a big investment. And I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about time and energy and emotions. But if you're going to put this much effort into taking care of your physical health, it stands to reason that you should put just as much effort into making sure your mental health is great too. So let's talk numbers. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, and that adds up. But with BetterHelp online therapy, you can save on average up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and time. Therapy should feel accessible to everyone, not just a luxury. With online therapy, you can get quality care at a price that makes sense. Your well-being is worth it. Visit BetterHelp.com/Rach to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Rach.
We're in the middle of this last 90 days challenge. I hope you're doing it with us. And today I was teaching on the idea of intensity versus consistency. and how much power there is in consistency. That has nothing to do with the moon cycle, but what I was sharing with them was this idea that when we have so many things that we're trying to hold on to, when we're terrified to let something go, when we feel like it is our job to hold all of the plates in the air, keep all of the juggling balls up in the air, hold on to all of these things, it's exhausting. So, there's a lot of people talking about this idea of burnout, and they have been for years. Like, everybody's burnt out. You're burned out because you are trying to hold all of it together. You're trying to keep up with all of these things. And what does it do for you to let go of something, to release that psychic energy? And I do not mean psychic like a psychic telling the future. I mean the mental capacity of holding all the shit together is draining you. Like, we always joke about this idea. It's like, it's a joke, but it's not. It's freaking awful. For women, like, if you could snap your fingers and never, for the rest of your life, think that you were ugly, think that you needed to lose weight, think that you didn't, for the rest of your life, you just never thought about your body again in any capacity except for a positive one, can you imagine how much space it would clear up in your head? Can you imagine the focus that you'd have? If you never again were like, oh no, I ate a cookie, I guess I need to go punch myself in the face. Like, if you never again were like, oh, my jeans aren't the right size. If you never again were like, oh, I wish my stomach didn't have rolls. I wish I didn't have cellulite. If you never thought of that again, can you imagine the capacity you would have? What you could focus on, what you could create without the distraction of that BS? It's why it's powerful to continually ask yourself, what do I need to let go of? Because I promise you can do this for the rest of your life and never run out of stuff that you need to stop doing. I was hanging out with one of my mentors. I'm really blessed in that I have a mentor in Bob Goff. And I was hanging out with him several months ago. And he said, Rach, we quit something around here every Thursday. Every Thursday we quit something. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, for me and my team, it's just like a thing that every Thursday you have to quit something. Wild. Can you imagine if you really committed to that? And I'm not even asking you to go like Bob and do it once a week. I'm just saying once a month. And you might not even have the ability yet to follow through on the thing that you need to let go of. You might not have that ability yet. But you can be conscious of knowing that it's something that you need to release. Like, if you think about the last full moon we had was a harvest moon, right? It was this idea, this is where my nerdy finding intention and everything comes in. I love looking at what the theme of the moon is that month and then trying to use that to unpack this idea in a different way. So for the harvest moon, I was thinking like, okay, this is the time of year when farmers would go gather the harvest. So they've invested all of this time and this effort to create this crop, and now is the time that they get to reap what they sow. So when I think about this idea of release and harvest, what I thought of was, what is the harvest that I could be taking in if I would let go of more things? Like, how big and bountiful is the harvest that God has in store for us, that the universe has in store for us, that is possible just on the other side of your doubt? But you're so weighed down by the distraction of people and things that do not serve you that you can't even get to that place. I also love the practice of letting go, because I think that if we're conscious of needing to let go of things, we will stop believing that we need so much. We will stop believing that we need more and more and more to be happy. If you know that every month you're trying to let something go, the desire to have more things, to have more stuff, doesn't compute. I want more. Don't get me wrong. I want more experiences with my family. I want more love. I want more joy. I want more laughter. I want more in my life. But I don't want more clothes. I don't want more things. I really think that this process for me has taught me to appreciate what I have. Because if you're in the habit of letting go, you're really conscious of not adding more things that you're just going to want to let go of 6 weeks from now. So it's been a really cool process for me and my friends. And it's a really cool process that I started doing with my kids because I thought, man, I wish I had had practices like this younger. So I put it on the calendar every month, on the whiteboard calendar that I fill out for them. I put that there's a full moon and that we're having full moon dinner. And at that dinner, I'm a nerd, you guys, but I got plates that have the moon on them, and I got napkins that have stars, and it's a whole thing. But during that dinner, they know that we're going to go around the table and everybody is going to talk about something that they want to release. And to be honest, the first 7 months I did this, my kids said kid-like things. They were like, I'm going to let go of being so awesome. I'm going to let go of farting at the table, like just stupid things, right? But I didn't course correct too much because I was like, well, they're here and they're doing this and I want them to see this practice so much. And then it would come to me, or maybe Sammy and Beans would be over, and then we'd say like real things like, I'm going to let go of the anxiety that I'm holding on to about this particular thing. They'd hear us practicing sort of what the intention was. And last month, literally for the first time ever, last month or the month before, all of them, all the boys, Noah's still so little, she has no idea what we're talking about, but all of the boys actually said what they wanted to release that was like what I would dream for them, like what it would have done for my life at 14, 13, 9 years old, to say, I really want to, or I really need to let go of what other people at school think about my clothes. Or I really need to let go. One of my kids said that they really get anxiety about their grades. And he is a straight A student, but also that would probably tell you why he has anxiety. But he was like, I really stress about not getting it right. And then I find out that there was no reason to stress. Like I'm stressing for no reason. And you guys, I watched it like, I don't know if you ever have those moments where like maybe you have two kids that always fight and then they start playing together and you're like, nobody move. Nobody react. Don't look at them. Because you're like, God, don't let this stop. That was me at the dinner table. I was like, oh my gosh, they're totally doing it. It was so exciting. So for me, this is a practice that I do for myself, but also for my kids. And I write, on a full moon or a new moon, my team at work knows that they're going to get a long message inside of Slack where I'm like, hey guys, this is what I'm unpacking. This is what I'm thinking about this month on the full moon. And I hope that maybe you consider some of these things. And that's my intention with this episode is do your own research. There's a lot of really cool rituals. If you want to get really witchy on it, there's a lot of really cool rituals with like charging your crystals and moon water and taking a bath. And there's some things that have sacred practices that, again, you can make your own. It's not about trying to copy or steal what someone else has put into place. I don't think that it's about, like, oh, now I've discovered this thing and you should too, because there are definitely deeply spiritual or religious practices that pertain to this that I'm not even going to touch on because that's not my thing. All I am hoping to do with you today is to encourage you to think about this. And if for you, maybe you're like, I don't know, the moon's a little too wild for me, Rach. Great. Do the third Wednesday of every month. Do the 7th of every month. Do any day. What I'm asking you to do is to plan time in your calendar, like right now. Do what Sammy did. Put it in your calendar for the next 12 months. She got a team involved, right? She sent it to all of us. She copied all of us on that calendar entry. Do something like that. At the very least, it will remind you that it's happening. I don't have your number. I can't send you a text on that day and be like, hey guys, here's 4 paragraphs on what I'm unpacking right now. But there's something really freaking powerful about just being that thoughtful about the flow and the cycle of a month. The last thing that I'll say on this topic is something that I talked about with Kristen on the podcast last week. When it comes to cycles, if you have a cycle, she said something that I loved the other day, and I was like, oh, I want to remember this. She said, we have to be really inclusive with this language because there are women who identify as women who don't have cycles, and there are people who don't identify as women who do have cycles. So I want to be inclusive with this language, but say that if you do have a menstrual cycle, look up what you should feel like during, like if you look up the full moon and the relation to like menses, right? When you are on your period, oftentimes we can be really hard on ourselves when we don't have the energy that we wish we had during that week, right? We've been taught to think that our cycle is bad and wrong and this huge pain and we're supposed to hate it. And really, there's a way to work with your cycle. And if you think about that week of menses, if you think about a full moon, if you think about that time of release, whenever that shows up for you, that time is meant to be introspective. It's not when you have the most energy. It's not when you're going out and taking on the world or running a marathon. You are moving slower. You are more grounded for a reason. If you look at historically, yes, there are cultures that made menses bad and wrong and others, but for many cultures, if you go back to ancient times, that week, think of like the Red Tent, if you've ever read that book or if you're familiar with that idea, that week of menses was a time of magic. That was considered sacred. That was considered when women had so much power, right? Like so many things were going on because they were connected to the earth in a different way. So, lots of things to think about, but the point is that you think and you get curious and you ask better questions. Or you ask any questions at all. I hope that you liked this episode. I really want to encourage you, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe so you get a notification every time I post a new video. If you are joining in, if you're loving the podcast, please take a screenshot, post it on social, tag me so I can see, or share it with someone you think will love it too. Hope you guys have a fantastic week, and until I see you next moon, remember, I love you, and I'm rooting for you.
The Rachel Hollis Podcast is produced by me, Rachel Hollis. It's edited by Andrew Weller and Jack Noble.
Hey, it's me, Paige DeSorbo, and I'm so excited to share my new shoe collection at DSW, filled with my favorite styles and trends for spring. Because if you know me, you know I'm kind of obsessed with shoes. And by kind of obsessed, I mean head over heels. You're going to love these shoes, so snag super cute styles like cute flats, fun heels, and cool sneakers from the Paige DeSorbo collection right now at your DSW store or dsw.com.